Good morning. Today I am going to go over the notes that we need for, or that you need for the Article 1 of the Constitution. My hope is that if you were not in class, you can use these to help you prepare for the test that will be coming up soon. So let me begin. Article 1, Section 1. This has to do with the legislative branch. The Constitution is divided into portions, and the first portions that we're going to talk about has to do with the legislative branch. This is all part of Article 1. To begin with, the legislative branch is broken into two parts, known as the bicameral Congress. That means two houses that have to do with legislating or making laws. So, both houses are responsible for making laws. The Senate, which has 2 people per state, is 100 people or senators. So there are 2 people that are elected from each state for a total of 100 senators. Now the House of Representatives, there are 435 representatives. Those representatives represent the people of the state. So the Senate represents the states, and the House of Representatives represents the people. Okay? All right. Now, Section 2. We're going to talk directly about the House of Representatives. This is what we're focusing on. The House of Representatives are directly elected every 2 years. They must be at least 25 years old. They have to be 7 years a citizen and a resident of the state that they're being voted from. Okay, so they are directly elected. That means everybody has an opportunity to vote for the senators from their state. So all you have to be is 25 years old and a citizen at least 7 years to be a representative. You do not have to be born in the state or born in the United States, only 7 years a citizen. You do have to, however, reside in the state you want to represent. You cannot represent Indiana and live in Ohio. All right, so let's speak specifically to our district. Our district here in Preble County is number 8. Now, that does not include just Preble County. I'm going to go to and come back to this here for a second. This gives you an opportunity. It's not the clearest picture. I'm sorry, it's the best I could do. But if you look over here, Preble County's right here. But our district is shaped kind of wonky, but like this. And Preble County's right smack there in the middle. So we are represented by a person from this particular district, and you can see all of Ohio is broken up into districts. Very strangely, this is called apportionment. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then let me go back to where we were. Okay, so we know we're District 8, and our representative is Warren Davidson. And if you were paying attention at all to the Veterans ceremony, you will know that Warren Davidson was actually here and did do a brief talk to us, and so you had an opportunity to actually see our representative. Okay, so apportionment is this idea that was created to settle on who's going to represent the people. So I'm going to go back to the map again. All right. So in an effort to make it as fair as possible, the state is divided into, in this case, 16 portions. And they are divided so that there are a certain number of people in approximately each district. So the districts, then, you can see some of them are quite small. 11 here is that small. 9 is rather small, very spread out, though, that you can see. And then 1, which is Hamilton and Warren County. This is all part of Cincinnati. Franklin County, the Franklin area. This is all part of Columbus. And of course, you can see here, this is Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland. And so you obviously large number of people in that small area. So the districts are apportioned according to population. And this apportionment is changed every 10 years as a result of the census. Census is taken every 10 years. 2020 will be the next census. And then for the year of 2020, people are out checking and making sure of the population. 2021, they will take that information and then begin to look at how the districts are apportioned. Are they equal? Is it correct? And then if not, and they're usually not, then they're reapportioned. And by 2012, that is settled. And so for the next 10 years, from 2012 through 2022, this is how the state is apportioned. I'm going to go back here. So, apportionment is according to population, and districts reapportioned happened after census reflecting changes in population. This is just additional information. The proportional distribution of the number of members of the U.S. House of Representatives on the basis of the population of each state, which is exactly what I just said. It has to do with the population within the certain areas. An allotment of direct taxes on the basis of population. So this also includes how an area is taxed. Okay, so that is how the districts are formed for each state. Now, in addition to talking about this in Section 2, we are looking now also at this information. The sole power of impeachment initiates the process by voting. If approved, referred to Senate for a trial. So what that's saying is, and we right now are dealing with this issue with President Trump and the House of Representatives, are they going to vote for impeachment? They are the ones who decide if the president should be impeached. Now, that is just the beginning of the process. The Senate will take the next part. We'll look at that next in Section 3. All right, Section 3, this has to do with the Senate. This, again, remember, is a bicameral Congress, 2 houses. Now, the Senate represents the states. They are directly elected for a total of 6 years, and 1/3 stand for election every 2 years. So rather than having all the senators stand for election at the same time, they've divided that into a third. So every 2 years, 1/3 of the senators, approximately 33, will stand for election. Okay, you have to be 30 years old. That's 5 years older than the House of Representatives. 9 years a citizen, and again, a resident of the state. And again, it is 2 people per state. Our Ohio senators are Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman. Senate has the sole power to try impeachment. So if the House of Representatives votes for President Trump to be impeached, then they go to the Senate, and the Senate actually has a trial and to decide if in fact the president is removed from office. 2/3 of vote is necessary to remove from office. So 2/3 of 100, meaning approximately 66, will have to vote for the president to be removed. For a president to be impeached, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will preside over the hearing of the impeachment. All right, Section 4. Section 4 steps away a little bit. Again, it still has to do with the fact that it's important to who knows who's being represented. And this has to do with federal elections held by every state, meaning that the states are responsible for holding the elections. However, Congress makes the law to regulate the elections. So this is a perfect example of federalism. Both the federal government and the state share in the power with elections. All right, Section 5. This has to do with the business of Congress, and it establishes that in order to do business, there has to be a number to make it legal. And for Congress, it has to be 1/2 plus 1, necessary for a quorum to conduct business. Now, if you're an FFA, you know exactly what a quorum is. But in this case, all we're talking about is the number necessary for them to make any kind of law or any kind of business. So for the Senate, it has to be 51, and for the House, it has to be 218. Remember, the Senate has 100 members, so it has to be 50 plus 1, all right? House of Representatives, 435, so this half is 217, and so they made it 218 would be for a quorum. In addition, to make sure nothing is secret, the Senate and the House must publish journals listing bills passed and amendments made and votes taken. Basically, they have to take minutes of all their meetings. Okay. Now, Section 6. Section 6 is all about making sure that the Congress is safe from any legal or entanglements. This is called liabilities for Congress. So members are protected from criminal or civil liability in performance of their legislative duties. And all that means is while the members of Congress are doing their job, they cannot be accused of a crime for having done their job. A good example might be this. If a member of Congress has voted for capital punishment, which is the death penalty, and someone is put to death as a result of the death penalty, no one can come back on that senator or representative and say to them, you've committed murder, because they were doing however they chose to vote, they were doing it in performance of their legislative duties. So they are protected as long as they are not committing a crime. All right, so the purpose of this is to preserve separation of powers. No member may be appointed to an executive or judicial office. Okay, so what's that saying? That is saying that if you are a member of the legislative body or the legislative branch, you cannot also be a member of the executive or the judicial branch. You cannot serve both. That would give too much power to an individual. And remember, it's all about separating the powers. So no member may be appointed to be in the executive branch or judicial branch. All right, salary may not be increased during a term of office. In other words, they can go in and vote for a salary increase, but no one can actually experience that salary increase until they've been re-elected. So until that's happened, then they do not see the additional money. Now, Section 7. This is very important because it talks about how a bill becomes a law. How is it that they can make law? Interestingly enough, Section 7 is about that, but they're not specific on how a bill becomes a law. Only over time, as the Senate and the House have started making law, has this process evolved and finally become what it is today. And I'm going to go over that with you and show you this whole process. All right, so to start with, though, the House of Representatives or the Senate may introduce a bill, and either one can introduce a bill. There's no issue with that. There is one exception, however. Only the House can originate a tax bill. Since the House represents the people, the Founding Fathers felt strongly that in order for it to be fair and represented correctly, that only the House could start anything with regards to taxes. Now, the Senate can amend, but both houses must support in order for it to become a law. So they both have to vote for it. I'm going to show you that process here in just a second. I want to review one more portion, and then I think it'll make a lot more sense if we go over this first. All right, so for a bill to become a law, it first must pass in identical form by both houses, then signed or vetoed by the president. So, important sentence, that first one. For a bill to become law, it must pass in identical form. So, both houses have to decide or vote for a law as long as it's written exactly the same. Then it's sent to the president, who can sign or veto it. If he vetoes it, then the Congress can get it back and override his veto with a 2/3 vote by Congress. Or, if Congress is in session and President chooses not to sign, and he does have that right, he doesn't have to sign the bill would become a law. It's automatic. If Congress adjourns or is in recess and no presidential signature, again, he's chosen not to sign, then this is known as a pocket veto, and Congress cannot override. So this clause here is known as the presentment clause, meaning this is how a bill is dealt with by both the House and the Senate. But it doesn't really go into the process, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the process. We're going to do that right now. Okay, should have erased this, forgot to, so we're going to erase it real fast. And there. Okay. Alrighty then. Okay. So let's walk through this. For a bill to become a law, it can be introduced by both the House or the Senate. Doesn't matter which. Now, if the House chooses, well, let's start with the House. So we will start if somebody comes and says they want to make something a law, and they come to a representative and say, hey, I have this idea, and this needs to become a law, then a representative can and does present it to the bill. They send it and introduce the bill, and once the bill is introduced, it isn't assigned and a number. For example, it could be let's say this is the 31st, 31st bill presented, okay? And they run in order. So at the beginning of each session, they start at number 1 and move forward. In this case, we're talking about House Representatives number 31. So the bill is introduced, okay? I'm playing with here. There we go. Bill is introduced, and it can, if the people like it, they can send it on to the next process, which is committee. However, if the House does not like it, then it can die. And so it doesn't move any farther. But if they do like it, they send it on to committee, and there's discussion. Now, these guys are there to decide and think about what it would be the right thing to do with this bill. Should it continue? Should it be rewritten? Does it need to have more study? And that's in fact what they do. They study the bill. The bill is assigned to a committee, and the committee could be any number of different committees out there. But for our purposes, like for example, if the bill had to do with agriculture, then it would go to the Agriculture Committee. Now, the House of Representatives has all sorts of committees. Let me show you the different committees that exist, and give me a second, and I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to bring it over. There we go. And you can see there's a number of committees that we can look at, but these are the committees, and their job is to study the bill to fully understand it. So like I said, if there was a group that wanted a bill that had to do with agriculture, then they would send it to this committee, and the members of them would be these guys. So we've got looking at the chairman Colin Peterson. He's from Minnesota, District 7. And you can move down through. Here we go, Representative Marcia Fudge. She's from Ohio, District 11. And then you've got all kinds of additional people who serve on that committee. Their job is to learn about that bill and then be able to report back eventually to the House of Representatives. Now, the committee can let it die. They do not have to move it forward. They can let it die. Or they can also rewrite the bill. They have that right. They can rewrite it to make it whatever they want it to make it. And once they have decided that they want the bill to continue, then they send it back to the House to vote. Okay, once the House votes, if they like it, it goes to the Senate. If they don't like it, guess what? It can die. All right, if it dies, then that's the end of it. But should they decide that they like it, then it goes to the Senate. And the Senate now is their job is to now create a bill or take this bill, and they are going to assign it their number, which happens to be Senate Bill 87. This is exactly the same bill. We're not talking about different bills. We're just talking about the same bill, or the same, or almost the same bill that started off here in the House of Representatives. The bill is introduced, it's assigned a number, it is then goes to a committee. Now, again, it can die right there, and it's done if it does. Or it can go to committee. They do the same process. The Senate has a bunch of committees as well. They can also kill it. They can also rewrite it. Okay, so both can still happen here. Now, if they decide they like it, they've rewritten it, they can move it on here to the Senate. Now, here's the problem. Are these two bills the same? If they've rewritten, and in most cases they do, then it is not identical. And remember, we'll go back to this. For a bill to become a law, it must pass in identical form. Well, it is no longer identical. Oh boy, got to do this quick. Sorry. Okay. All right. It is not identical. Now it has to go, the bill has to arrive here. Now the House version comes, so does the Senate vote or version come. Okay. Now, their job, this group, is to compromise and make this bill identical. So what you have are a group from the House and a group from the Senate, and together they work to compromise and make the bill identical. Now, if they cannot compromise, what happens? Oh, get rid of that. Let's go here. Copy. There we go. All right. Again, it could do the same thing here. It could die. If they cannot compromise, they cannot make it work, then it dies. It goes no further. All right. But what if they are able to make a compromise and come to an identical form? Then it goes back to the House, and it goes back to the Senate, and they vote. And if they don't like it, guess what? It can die. And if one house kills it, then it's done. It doesn't keep going. Both, if the Senate kills it and the House doesn't, it's done. If the House kills it and the Senate doesn't, it's still done. From there, it goes to the president. Come on, there we go. And he can sign, or she can sign, hopefully at some point. Okay? Or veto. Now, if Congress, then the president does not sign or veto, Congress is in session, it passes. It becomes law. If Congress is out, it becomes a pocket veto. Now, don't forget, let me get something real quick here. pen. Okay. If the president vetoes, Congress has the right to then vote 2/3 of Congress two-thirds of Congress can override override what the I have no idea what that is. Hang on. So 2/3 of Congress can override a veto. So don't forget that. That's important. So 2/3 of Congress can override a veto. All right. Hopefully that makes perfect sense, and we will continue on. Looks like my time is up for right now. I'm going to stop this one, and then we'll continue on with the next portion from section 8.